How you doing? Welcome back. It is the 28th of this 2025. That means it's Sunday, and this is an Ask Me Anything about the Middle East conflict, the Israel-Palestine conflict, wars in the Middle East, and so on and so forth. So if you are interested in this kind of topic and you're here for that, well, by all means, start asking your questions. Meanwhile, until I see the first question, I'll give you the quick heads up on the status update of what's going on in the Israel-Hamas war and the Israel versus Iran war, for starters. For example, in the Israel versus Hamas war, Israel is still waiting to receive the last body of the last known hostage being held in Gaza. It's been a very long time since the ceasefire has gone into effect now, more than a few months. Back in mid-October. It's been now more than a few months, and exactly as I told you, the Hamas are dragging this out in order to not give up power. And in my opinion, foolishly, Israel is playing along with that and allowing them to remain in power until they give up the hostages, lost hostage. As I've made clear many times already, at this point, Israel should have already said enough is enough. You must disarm now, according to the plan, in order for us to move to the next phase. And that is what Israel should demand. And if we don't do that, if they don't agree to disarm and withdraw from power, Israel should do whatever has to be done to force them to be removed from power and to be disarmed, including the use of military force if necessary, which obviously would be necessary, given that the Hamas has absolutely no intention of abiding by this plan, and they are literally just dragging this out in order to play up the PR war and remain in power by playing up the PR war and testing the patience of many of the signatories on the deal, including the United States, by the way, which was actually the very first country to show signs of cracking because they came under pressure from Trump's friends in Qatar and Turkey, where he is very interested in having more deals done, especially in Qatar, where he wants to get real estate deals and do more military deals with them, and also in Turkey, where he wants to do military deals, including selling them F-35 jet fighters. This despite the fact that Turkey is developing its own stealth weapons. Hello there. Sup? Oh, hey, how you doing? Thank you for watching, and please hit the like and subscribe if you would. Help me reach more people. By all means, if you have questions about the Middle East conflict or the Israel-Palestine conflict, go ahead and ask. I appreciate it, and I'll be happy to answer. So yeah, I'll continue giving you the update on what's happening right now. Israel is, in my opinion, like I said, making a mistake by not forcing the Hamas to give up the weapons that they have and the power that they're holding on to. Because by doing the opposite, by allowing them to stay in power, we are literally letting them resupply, reorganize, regroup, retrain, and get ready for the next October 7th style attack at some point if they are not removed from power. And therefore, I believe it is in Israel's military interest and political interest and long-term survival interest to get the Hamas out of power ASAP. And that means that Hamas's time is up and they should really be giving up the goods at this point. There is no excuse for allowing them to remain in power and allowing them to continue to have their guns. It's just not acceptable. Nevertheless, that's the state we're in. Hold on one second. And yeah, that is the current status of what's happening between Israel and Hamas in that particular front of the war. And when I say that particular front of the war, I mean because this is a 7-front war at the moment, right? Even though we still technically have kind of quelled at least one front with the Hezbollah, and we have a kind of a ceasefire with them as well. However, there continue to be violations of that ceasefire by the Hezbollah, and when that happens, Israel takes the necessary actions to neutralize those threats, as we've seen in recent days and weeks, when Israel neutralized various actors in Lebanon who were violating the truce by attempting to resupply and basically refit their infrastructure, as well as repair weapons that had been damaged, and all kinds of other violations that have been documented very clearly by Hezbollah terrorists. The violations by Hezbollah terrorists that were documented by the IDF, and for which those terrorists that were targeted paid a price, because, well, that's what happens when you F around, you find out. So, by all means, that is what Israel should be doing to the Hamas as well, except the difference between the Hezbollah front and the Hamas front is that Hezbollah is operating inside of a sovereign country to our north, with whom we really don't want to fight another war. And we would like it if the Lebanese government would force the Hezbollah, to step out of the political ring, and more importantly, to disarm. Right? Now, if they want to allow Hezbollah to remain in politics, well, that's, sadly, that's their own choice and that's their business. But they should not be allowed to rearm, even though we know they are doing it. Right? They are buying as many weapons as they can right now from the remnants of the Assad regime in Syria. So they are literally buying everything they can off the block from the Syrian arsenal that remains. You have to remember that most of the arsenal was destroyed by the Israeli Defense Forces following the downfall of the Assad regime in 2024, when the Al-Jilani forces came to power. And that is because for a few days following the downfall of Assad's regime, the IDF conducted a variety of strikes against military assets across Syria to basically lay waste to the arsenal that they had, partly to make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands, and partly to make sure that whoever's hands it fell into, it would not pose a serious threat to Israel. So yes, Israel did destroy reportedly something like 86% of the Syrian regime's, the old Syrian regime's arsenal, including all of its boats and all of its airplanes, some of its helicopters, and a whole bunch of weapon storage caches. However, some 14% at least, possibly more, of their weapons remained untouched, and it was seen as Israel as a successful mission. However, not a 100% successful mission, because obviously we didn't destroy 100% of their military assets, and in fact it would be practically impossible to do that, just because of the sheer logistical requirements of doing that. But destroying, allegedly up to 86%, or even 3/4 or more, is a staggering blow to whichever power is now, at play in Syria. And currently, of course, that is the Al-Jilani terrorists of ISIS, who are now going under his new name, Al-Shara, and they are unofficially, not considered terrorists anymore for some weird reason. Wonder how that happened. Well, it happened because, hello there in the chat, I see you. It happened because Al-Shara, or Al-Jilani, whatever you want to call him, flew to Qatar when Trump was there and shook hands with various heads of state. Also went to the Palais des Élysées, the French presidential palace in Paris, where he shook hands with the French President Macron. And then, of course, later was invited to the White House, where he sat met with President Trump and discussed all kinds of issues about Syria. And Trump basically gave Syria, even before that meeting, all kinds of rewards, effectively, including the removal of Syria from the list of nations that have economic sanctions against them. So Syria is now considered a nation by the United States, a nation that no longer has economic sanctions on it. It means they're free to trade with the world, essentially. And that basically means that they are in good graces, essentially. And their kind of credit has been restored to some degree, in a sense. This despite the fact that al-Shara's forces have continued to commit unabashed acts of terrorism against Alawites, Christians, Kurds, and Druze, and have attempted multiple times, have actually committed genocide multiple times against the Druze. When I say they've actually committed multiple genocides, is because the definition of a genocide, right, is the intentional killing of a people in part or in whole. And that's exactly what the al-Shara terrorists did earlier this year and again over the past summer, when at least on 2 separate occasions for an extended number of days, they basically attacked Druze people without any cause, with the intention to wipe them out or kill as many of them as they possibly could. And it was only thanks to the intervention of Israel in both cases that those genocides were stopped. So once again, Israel is fighting the good fight, protecting innocent people who have nothing to do with the savagery brought down upon them, who were just purely victims. And Israel went to defend them, even though those people are not themselves Israeli, right? They are people who are doing nothing wrong, and they are within Israel's, capabilities to protect. So Israel went and protected them. And for that, Israel was rewarded by the international community as being called, once again, genociders and murderers of, poor, innocent Muslim Syrians. No, they were terrorists who were literally butchering innocent Druze who had done nothing wrong. Right? They were butchered for the crime of being Druze in Syria. And you have to keep in mind, Israel has a very close tie with the Druze people, because we have Druze in Israel, right? They are citizens of Israel, many of them. Many of them have chosen to remain not citizens of Israel for now, but increasingly they've chosen to become Israeli, but still many of them choose to not be Israeli, mostly out of fear, right? There was the fear for many decades from the time of Israel's inception until now even. There was a fear among the Druze of Israel that if, God forbid, one day, the Arabs would win against Israel and destroy Israel, that all the Druze would be punished, and especially those taken up Israeli citizenship. So those who did not take Israeli citizenship, presumed that they would be considered safe if Arabs would ever take over the land of Israel again. Well, fortunately, the Arabs have not taken over the land of Israel again, and Israel remains a strong and sovereign nation with a very capable military and a growing economy and population. Hello there. That's not ha-ha. I don't know what you mean, but hello there. If you have any questions about the Middle East or Israel-Palestine conflict, please ask away. Meanwhile, I'm updating you about the status of affairs here. So the Druze here in Israel, they're Israeli like me. They're our brothers and sisters. Many of them serve in the IDF. They are, in fact, the only ethnic minority in Israel, apart from the Circassians, who are required to serve in the IDF. And the reason they're required to serve is not because Israel forces them to. It's because the Druze community themselves, way back in the day when Israel was reestablished, the Druze asked and demanded that the Israeli government require Druze young men to serve in the IDF, just like it requires Israeli Jews to serve in the IDF. So they are the only ethnic minority, apart from the Circassians, who also made the same request and received it, that are required to serve in the IDF. And not only do they serve in the IDF, but they are, of all the ethnic minorities in Israel, the group that has the highest level of recruitment into elite combat units, which means that of all the population groups in Israel, including Jews, by the way, of course, we have a lot more Jews than there are Druze, but still, percentage-wise, as a people, the Druze serve in elite combat units in all the armed services branch, Army, Navy, Air Force, etc., special operations, you name it. In fact, if you follow here on YouTube the YouTuber Mansour Ashkar, who is an amazing YouTuber, and I highly recommend you check out his content and his channel and subscribe to it if you're not already. Mansour Ashkar is a Druze who is an Israeli who served in the IDF and in Special Forces unit, and is an absolutely fantastic communicator from his perspective about the situation. And during the horrible attacks on the Druze that we've seen this past year, he was very clear about, why Israel is the friend of the Druze, and why the Druze are friends of Israel, and why it is that we are important for each other, and that we should continue to support each other. And he just made that case extremely eloquently many times, and he does so continually. In fact, you should really go check out his latest videos on YouTube and also on Facebook, and he posts stuff on X and stuff, because he's just an excellent communicator about this topic, given his personal background as a Druze, as an Israeli, and as a former member of the IDF in the Special Forces, where he was, by the way, commanding Jewish soldiers, right? So for people who say, oh, there's apartheid in Israel, keep in mind we have Druze, and we have, Muslim Arabs who command Jewish soldiers in the IDF, right? Yeah, and yes, you can tell me yes, but they're a tiny number of people compared to the overall size of the military. Well, that's true. However, like I said, the Druze are a very small population compared to the Arab Muslims and Arab Christians. The Druze have the highest percentage of their population that are recruited to elite combat units. So they are doing more than pulling their own weight, right? They are actually punching way above their weight class and doing extraordinary things to protect our country, because guess what? It's their country too, right? The Druze have a beautiful tradition, which is because they are a very peaceful people, actually, and their tradition is to be loyal to whichever state they happen to reside in, right? So the ones in Israel are loyal to Israel, the ones in Lebanon are loyal to Lebanon, the ones in Jordan are loyal to Jordan, and the ones in Syria are loyal to Syria. And by the way, when they move to other countries, they're loyal to that nation too. So, if you move to Germany, you're loyal to Germany. If you move to Australia, you're loyal to Australia, right? Why? Because that is one of the ways they maintain peaceful relations with their host nation, right? They don't have a desire to have their own state, right? They have a desire to live in peace and to live peacefully wherever they are, which is a beautiful tradition, right? You may love the Druze, maybe you don't. I don't know. But you should know that they are a peace-loving people. They're wonderful people who contribute a lot to the societies that they live in. And yes, sure, there are some, for example, Druze in Lebanon who have very difficult tensions amongst themselves, partly because, of course, out of fear, they often give in to the whims of the Hezbollah in South Lebanon. However, there are some that are, pro-Israel, right? And many of them have relatives living in Israel, right? Or even in Syria and Jordan. But in Israel, of course, is the bigger deal. There are, in fact, many Druze here in Israel who are married to Lebanese Druze and vice versa. And so despite the tensions sometimes between the leadership of the Druze, certain leaders of the Druze community in Lebanon and Israel, the fact is that the Druze as a people in Lebanon and the Druze as a people in Israel tend to get along fine because they are literally family. That said, there are cases where there is, in fact, a great deal of tension between those different people and where they don't get along. And that is especially known in certain cases with certain families and certain groups of Druze in Lebanon who really do not get along well with other Druze in Israel and even in Syria, by the way. And yes, the Druze in Syria, for the most part, are pro-Israel because, yes, they are loyal to Syria insofar as they had been kind of protected as an ethnic minority under the Assad regime, going back to the first Assad, the took power, Hafez al-Assad, and then his son Bashar al-Assad. And they ruled that country for 50, 60 years or so. But given the current tumult and volatility of the government structure in Syria, an increasing number of Druze, probably the majority, are pro-Israel, those who live in Syria, because they have seen bloody attacks against them, horrific genocides against them by al-Shara's terrorists, and they've seen who has come to their rescue. And there's only one country that did it, and that one country is Israel. So that is why it is very important for the Israelis and the Druze to maintain strong relations, because it is to the benefit of both of our people. Hello there, I say hi to you. Oh, I see your 6 and 7 meme. Okay, hi there, everybody. I appreciate all of your wonderful comments. And I'm going to be getting ready to end this thing soon, within a few minutes. Or I could continue, but I have to put you on pause for some minutes or on mute, as I'll be busy doing some things for some minutes. So I think I'll end it here. Thanks again for participating. Thanks for liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. And your comments, and share this video if you will, so that we can get this out to more people. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, which may be probably later today, either on this channel or on my other relatively new channel, where I pretty much post, debates, discussions, and talks that I have with people. If you're interested in knowing what channel that is, it's called Zen Tap Talks. So go check out Zen Tap Talks on YouTube. It's just like it sounds, Zen Tap Talks. Okay, there you go. Hopefully that's clear with all the background noise I've got here. All right, until the next one, folks, I wish you well. Happy days and shalom from Israel. Peace.